Okay, let's get into it. Ladies and gentlemen, Zoran Mamdani just got hit with a major reality check after a New York judge stepped in and halted the rollout of his controversial second home tax in New York City. And remember how this thing was sold to everybody when he was standing outside of Ken Griffin's home, ladies and gentlemen, rubbing his hands together like an evil villain saying, hey, we're going to tax the rich. It's just going to be the wealthy outsiders who have luxury second homes, millionaires who can afford it. What could possibly go wrong? Well, apparently quite a bit, because somehow this targeted tax turned into nearly 1 million properties appearing on a massive city tax roll. Approximately 17,000 homeowners receiving notices. Some longtime residents saying, wait a minute, I actually live here. And homeowners being told they are on the hook to provide documentation and prove that the government shouldn't be taxing them. And now homeowners took Mamdani's administration to court, and the judge said, stop. This is an absolute disaster for a rollout, which is really just par for the course with the way things have been going so far under Mamdani. It looks good for the headlines, but that's about it. And so we got a lot to break down and get into, ladies and gentlemen, but first, let's start right here. Check it out.
Island Courthouse, where a lawsuit over Mayor Mamdani's Pied-à-terre tax goes before a judge this afternoon. 3 city homeowners are challenging the tax rollout, arguing the city is improperly shifting the burden onto residents. Mamdani responding to that lawsuit earlier today.
Breaking news now at 5, and a judge on Staten Island has granted a temporary restraining order on New York City's controversial new Pied-à-terre tax. This pauses its enforcement for now, while a lawsuit brought by a group of homeowners is allowed to move forward. Former Deputy Mayor Randy Mastro filed this lawsuit, saying the attempt to identify which homes are subject to this tax cost too wide of a net, forcing property owners to prove their residency. Governor Hochul, who supports the tax, today acknowledged there are a lot of people frustrated with this and how it's been rolled out. But she says New York City's tax department is responsible for all of that.
Wow. Yeah. So not quite how Mamdani sold this whole thing from the beginning, right? He sold this as only the wealthy would be affected. And as it turns out, that was a bunch of BS. I mean, is anybody shocked? Not really, right? And so now a judge has put this whole thing on a bit of a pause button, because you can't force the homeowners to have to be the ones to prove that they are living in their own home and shouldn't have to pay this tax that you decided to put all their information out on, and now say it's on you. Like, what are we doing? That's just, I mean, that's wrong on so many levels. And listen, it's as expected coming from this whole Mamdani administration. They do things for the headlines, not for the actual long-term outcomes. You got these government-run grocery stores that are going to run the taxpayer bill to build grocery stores that cost 3 to 4 times more than what a private business ends up paying when they want to build a grocery store. And so they're overspending to build these grocery stores. They have these free childcare programs that those costs are, and we're going to get into that in a moment with the childcare costs and how that's running wild and how that number is going to be ballooning in the future. And so what is New York City setting themselves up for by having this guy in office? Is they're setting themselves up for every year moving forward, it's going to get more and more out of control. That's all. But let's go ahead and jump into Mamdani's comments about this whole thing, and then we'll come back.
Hi, Mr. Mayor. Good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Well, thanks. How are you? Wondering if you can respond to the Pied-à-terre tax lawsuit that was filed on Friday. It's going to court today, how your legal team is working on that. And then also, do you have any regrets on how the rollout was done? And what are your thoughts moving forward on that?
You know, there are a few things more certain in New York City than death, taxes, and Randy Mastro filing a lawsuit against this administration. So we look forward to vigorously defend our city's position in court, as we have done so with the previous lawsuits that he has filed, and I'm sure with the lawsuits that he will continue to file in the months and years to come. And we are confident in our position. And that is a confidence coming from both the legality of the city's actions as well as the importance of a surcharge on secondary homes worth more than $5 million a surcharge that will help fund safer streets, that will help fund stronger schools, and it will help fund the city that New Yorkers deserve.
Do you have regrets on the rollout?
You know, we always know that with any new tax, there are more questions than there are answers. And we're looking to make sure that every New Yorker that is potentially affected, again, we're talking about 17,000 homeowners out of a city of 8.5 million, have all the information that they need. And we've extended the deadline for them to appeal to the Department of Finance to September 18th. Again, if they do not appeal by that point, they can still appeal to the Tax Commission by March of 2027.
This is why you have so many people, and we're going to get into this in a moment. They see the writing on the wall. They're looking to get out of New York. And we're going to get into that. But first, take a listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. Ugandan Mayor Zoran Mamdani has just exposed himself as a scammer to every New York City resident, as his universal child care will cost nearly double what he promised. Take a listen to this.
We're talking about the mayor of New York City, which could be a mayor coming your way. Independent estimate is $9 billion a year for universal child care. Guess what he said it was? Going to be $5 to $6 billion a year. So it's 40% more than he thought.
The key word here, folks, is estimate. Okay, remember the runaway train, train to nowhere in California? I think it's somewhere like 10, 20, 30 times overestimate, and they've got enough track to go from me to you. I mean, so these numbers are scary. This is an estimate. To your point, it was almost half of that just a few months ago.
This is never going to happen. The free buses, people are getting on the bus and they're not paying because they think it started already. The MTA can't afford not to charge. Independent estimate, $1.1 billion. It would bankrupt the system. Don't expect the free buses.
It would be a boondoggle anyway. It would just be an absolute unmitigated nightmare. And again, know what this whole thing is, Brian? Systems are created, right? Capitalism built wealth. It built systems. And socialism, communism, it's a parasite. It's a parasite that has to exist on top of capitalism.
He's got to fail for people to realize this. City-run grocery store, $70 million. He's going to start about 5. They're going to be epic fails. That's my prediction. But what's coming up on making money at 2 o'clock?
The question you have to be asking at this point is, where is the balance in all of this? Free child care program that's going to cost taxpayers $5 billion, estimated it could go to $9 billion. Government-run grocery stores, startup cost $70 million. This free bus situation, which probably is never going to happen, but had plans for that. And so all of these different programs, all of these different initiatives to basically take from taxpayers. Where is the balance that's going to actually create more revenue to support these things? The answer is there is no balance, ladies and gentlemen. And this is exactly what we've been talking about as we've been covering these topics with these democratic socialists, how they don't consider the actual ramifications of taking and taking and taking from others to pay for their socialist utopia dreams. Because as long as the bill is due to someone else, really not a priority. But let's go back to that ruling and now hear from the lawyer on this case. Take a listen.
Welcome back. New York City homeowners have filed a lawsuit against Mayor Mamdani to delay the Pied-à-terre tax, saying the rollout hasn't been executed properly and puts an illegal burden on property owners. Oral arguments are happening this afternoon. Joining us now, the plaintiff's attorney, Deckert partner Randy Mastro. He also served as first deputy mayor under Eric Adams, as a former acting mayor of New York City, and previously served as a former assistant U.S. attorney and former deputy chief of the civil division of SDNY. Welcome, Randy. It's good to have you. So just to be clear, this lawsuit is not about the Pied-à-terre tax itself. It's about how it's been rolled out?
It's about the rollout. The mayor wanted to grab a quick headline about this surcharge that he asked for in the first place. He got his headline, but he broke the law in the process. The state statute authorizing his administration to implement the surcharge is very clear. The city has to make individualized initial determinations. That's the words in the statute. Initial determinations that the tax applies to particular residences. Didn't do that. Instead, in blunderbuss fashion, put out a roll of 900,000 plus New Yorkers that it said relate to the surcharge, and then sent 17,000 of them notices that it may be subject to the surcharge. That's just illegal.
Right, including most people who it's their primary residence, correct?
Correct. I got one of those notices. I was first deputy mayor, legally had to live in the city and I've lived in the city for 40 years and paid city taxes for 40 years. Thousands and thousands of people got these letters, and instead of the city carrying its burden of reviewing files, including tax records, and making a determination who's actually subject to the surcharge, they tried to switch the burden to property owners to have to prove they live in their own homes. That's wrong, that's unconscionable, and it's illegal.
Yeah, so take a moment to think about this. This is really the perfect example of why you do not want more government involvement in your life. And so when you have these Democratic socialist candidates railing for health care for all, that's their thing. I'll just use this as our example to say why it's not a good idea to put more government involvement in your life. They can't even get this figured out. And this is actually a pretty small scale, as Mamdani mentioned. He said it. 8 million, 17,000 out of 8 million affected. Okay. You can't even get this figured out where you only actually deal with those who don't live in their home full time. You mess that up, but you want to take care of health care for all Americans and think that's going to be what? A success? That's not usually how it goes. And that's exactly what Mamdani continuously keeps trying to sell. More government in your life will solve your problems. But let's continue.
Yeah, and I'm sort of wondering, like, why they did that. Is it lazy, or is there something more sinister here, where they're really, from a socialist mayor, trying to exacerbate class warfare and expose people?
Well, it definitely exposed people because it published lists of their names, addresses, and property values and subjected them to unwanted scrutiny and press. But it's also the case that whether this was out of negligence or laziness or intentionality, because the city administration is trying to ensnare people into having to pay the tax, the notices they got say, you may be subject to the tax, but you have to apply for an exemption, and if you prove to the city's satisfaction, then you don't have to pay the tax. But if you don't apply, or you don't prove it to the city's satisfaction, you're going to be charged the surcharge. Now, that's not the way taxes work in this country. Government doesn't go, I'd like to tax you, prove to me you're not subject to a tax. That's crazy.
Yeah, and so there you have that, and this is exactly why now you are beginning to see the numbers reflect some very troubling signs for the Mamdani administration as far as what's to come. And so take a listen to this, ladies and gentlemen. 10 months into office, Mayor Mamdani's communist agenda has gutted New York City. His rent freezes, new zoning laws, and sweeping anti-landlord policies were supposed to protect renters. Instead, they've caused rent to skyrocket. Manhattan median rent, $5,295 a month, up 8.2% in the last 10 months. Brooklyn median rent, $4,350 a month, up 8.1% in the last 10 months. Mamdani's sanctuary city policies have made it worse. An estimated 535,000 illegal aliens now live in New York City, while 40% of all New York City renters are first-generation immigrants, crushing supply and driving demand through the roof. But the most damning evidence is the numbers nobody wants to talk about. New York City currently has 26% more for sale listings than rental listings. In normal major cities, rental listings outnumber for sale listings by roughly 50%. The total reversal here is a screaming signal that homeowners and property investors are dumping their buildings and fleeing the city altogether. After campaigning on economic relief and affordability, Mamdani's communist policies have turned an already expensive city into the single most unaffordable urban center anywhere on the globe. And so the reason why these policies will fail, it's not a matter of if, ladies and gentlemen, it's only a matter of when. is because you cannot keep sticking your hand in a cookie jar and think that there is unlimited cookies. And that's what we're watching right here. There is no balance. There is no let's make some more cookies. It's just, hey, let's just keep on taking. Somebody else will bake the next batch. And when you have that sort of leadership in place, yeah, sooner or later, it's going to collapse. Sooner or later, the walls are going to cave in. Sooner or later, everything is going to implode. And we are watching that slowly happen right now. But yeah, it's happening. And so as always, ladies and gentlemen, now I want to hear from you. Drop your comments down below. Go ahead and smash that thumbs up button. That's the best way to let me know you enjoy the content. For more, subscribe to the channel. And as always, until next time.